Liam Brooks hadn't planned on visiting Ethan that weekend. The idea came to him on a Friday morning while staring at his untouched breakfast, a bowl of oatmeal gone cold beside his phone that buzzed with another unread message from Daniel. For weeks, their conversations had been reduced to logistics, groceries, bills, schedules. Words once tender had become mechanical, stripped of warmth. He didn't blame Daniel, work had swallowed him whole. Still, the silence between them had grown heavy enough to make Liam want to breathe elsewhere, even for a day. Ethan's invitation had been sitting in his messages for months. Come by any time, his old college friend had written, a casual offer that Liam had politely ignored until now. Maybe he needed noise again, laughter, familiar faces, something to remind him of the version of himself that still felt alive. By noon, he was in his car, the hum of the engine steady and comforting as the city blurred behind him. Ethan lived on the edge of town in a renovated farmhouse, white wood, wide porch, the kind of place that looked alive even in silence. Liam parked beneath the maple trees and stepped out into the crisp air. Before he could knock, the door swung open, Liam Brooks in the flesh. Ethan grinned, arms wide. You actually showed up. Liam smiled despite himself. You said your door was always open. And for once, someone took me seriously, Ethan laughed, pulling him into a hug that smelled faintly of cedar and coffee. Inside, the house was warm, filled with the aroma of something cooking and the murmur of voices from the living room. Ethan guided him inside, and Liam noticed two unfamiliar faces near the fireplace. One of them, a tall, easygoing man with tousled hair and a teasing smile, lifted a hand. You must be Liam. I'm Caleb. The other turned from the window, quieter, composed, his voice calm and steady. Noah, he said simply, offering a handshake. His touch was cool but sure, his eyes a soft gray that caught the light. Cousins, Ethan explained, patting Caleb's shoulder. They're in town for a few days. Prepare yourself, they've already eaten half the house. Hey, Caleb protested, that casserole was small. Liam chuckled, the atmosphere easing him into comfort. The room carried that kind of warmth that demanded nothing, mismatched chairs, open curtains, music playing low. It was the kind of home that felt lived in, not performed. Dinner unfolded with easy chatter. Ethan told stories from their college days, each one more exaggerated than the last. Caleb laughed loudly at his own jokes, while Noah listened more than he spoke, his amusement quiet but genuine. When he did join in, it was often to correct a detail Ethan had embellished. Ethan didn't actually pass that exam, Noah said, smiling faintly. He bribed the professor with concert tickets. Allegedly, Ethan countered. To everyone's amusement, Liam found himself studying Noah more than he meant to, the way his gaze lingered when listening, how he folded his hands neatly when thinking. There was a calmness about him that contrasted with Ethan's restless energy. It wasn't attraction, not exactly, but something gentler, curiosity threaded with recognition. After dinner, they drifted to the living room. Caleb put on a record, something soft and nostalgic. Ethan poured drinks. The air shifted, laughter quieted into conversation. So, what's life like these days? Ethan asked, handing Liam a glass. Liam hesitated, swirling the amber liquid. Busy. Quiet. I guess that's good. Quiet can be good, Noah said, his voice even, thoughtful. Unless it starts feeling like absence. Liam looked at him, caught off guard. Yeah, he said finally. Exactly like that. A silence followed, not awkward, but delicate. Caleb broke it with a joke about Ethan's failed cooking experiments, and the moment dissolved, but it lingered in Liam's mind like a half-finished thought. Later, Ethan gave him the guest room upstairs. The hallway smelled faintly of pine, the kind of scent that made him think of old wood and rainy mornings. He set his bag down and sat on the bed, the day's noise still echoing faintly through the house. He could hear laughter downstairs, Ethan's voice, then Caleb's, and then, quieter, Noah's. He found himself listening without meaning to. There was something soothing about the rhythm of their voices, the faint clinking of glasses, the rise and fall of a conversation he wasn't part of but somehow belonged to. He thought of Daniel then, of how long it had been since their evenings carried sound, since they'd filled silence with anything but exhaustion. He lay back, staring at the ceiling. The room was dim except for the light spilling in from the hallway. He could see the shadow of the doorframe on the floor, a border between presence and solitude. Somewhere below, the laughter faded, replaced by the sound of the wind brushing against the windows. Sleep didn't come easily. His mind replayed fragments of the evening, Ethan's easy warmth, Caleb's humor, Noah's quiet remark about absence. It wasn't just what he'd said, it was how he'd said it, as though he understood something unspoken inside Liam. He turned on his side, facing the window. Outside, the world was still. The porch light glowed faintly, illuminating the outline of the maple trees. He imagined Noah downstairs, maybe still awake, sketching or reading, someone who didn't rush silence but listened to it. The thought unsettled him. It wasn't wrong, but it wasn't harmless either. It made him aware of the distance between what he had and what he longed for. In the quiet, he realized how strange it felt to be seen again, not for what he said, but for what he didn't have to explain. That he exhaled slowly, letting the tension drain. Tomorrow, he told himself, he'd enjoy the day, no overthinking, no comparisons. It was just a visit. Just a weekend away. Downstairs, faint footsteps moved across the wooden floor. A door creaked, followed by the soft click of a light switch. Then silence. Liam closed his eyes, the faint image of gray eyes lingering behind his eyelids. He wasn't sure why the thought mattered, or why it felt like the beginning of something he wasn't ready to name. Outside, the wind picked up, whispering through the trees, carrying with it the fragile feeling of something just starting to shift. Morning sunlight spilled through tall windows, painting the room in quiet gold. Eli blinked awake, momentarily disoriented by the warmth of the blanket and the scent of brewed coffee floating through the air. For a fleeting moment, he thought he was home again, before the memory returned like a slow bruise. He sat up, his reflection caught in the mirror across the room, a stranger in borrowed comfort. Outside the door, the low murmur of a man's voice drifted from the kitchen. Daniel Cross moved with the ease of someone used to control, every gesture deliberate, precise. He glanced up as Eli stepped hesitantly into view. "Morning," Daniel said, setting down his tablet. "I wasn't sure how you take your coffee, so I guessed. Hope black isn't too cruel a choice." Eli managed a small smile. "Black's fine. Thank you." He wrapped his hands around the cup, grateful for the warmth, but unsure what to do with the silence that followed. The apartment was sleek but not cold, modern lines softened by books, sketches, and a faint scent of cedarwood. It felt lived in, though meticulously so. Daniel leaned against the counter, studying him without judgment. "You slept nearly 10 hours, he said lightly. "That's a good sign." "I didn't mean to," Eli murmured. "I should probably go." "You've already done enough." Daniel shook his head. "You don't owe me an apology. If you want to leave, I'll drive you. But if you need a few days to get your bearings, you can stay here. There's work I could use help with, sorting digital files, that sort of thing. You'd earn something, not charity." The word work steadied Eli more than he expected. "I could do that," he said quietly. "At least until I figure things out." "Good," Daniel replied with a faint smile. "Then let's start with breakfast." "Real breakfast. You look like you haven't had one in weeks." The meal was simple: eggs, toast, and conversation that wandered cautiously between small talk and silence. Eli learned that Daniel ran a private investment firm, that he built it young and kept mostly to himself. He spoke in a calm, unhurried way that drew trust without asking for it. Over the next few days, Eli settled into a rhythm. He worked from the home office, organizing client files, drafting notes, sometimes just listening to music through Daniel's old speakers. Daniel moved through the house like quiet weather, always composed, rarely still. Yet beneath the composure, Eli sensed a loneliness that mirrored his own. On the fifth evening, the front door opened with the sharp sound of keys, and the air changed. A man entered, tall, polished, his expression coolly assessing. His gaze found Eli first, lingering just long enough to register irritation. "Who's this?" he asked, setting his briefcase down. Daniel looked up from the couch. "Aaron, this is Eli. He's helping me with some projects this week." Aaron's smile didn't reach his eyes. "I see. You've hired an assistant without telling me. It's temporary, Daniel said evenly. Eli needed a place to stay. It costs me nothing to help. Eli stood awkwardly, unsure whether to shake hands or disappear. Aaron gave a small nod, polite, dismissive, then turned to Daniel. We'll talk later. He left the room, and the quiet that followed was heavier than before. Daniel exhaled slowly, rubbing his temple. Don't mind him, he said softly. He's protective. Your partner? Eli asked before he could stop himself. Daniel nodded. We've been together a few years. It's complicated. Eli said nothing more, but the word complicated stayed with him. The days passed differently after that. Aaron was gone most mornings, but when he was home, tension filled the air like static. Eli often caught fragments of arguments, whispered words through closed doors, the sharp edges of frustration. He pretended not to hear. One afternoon, Daniel joined him in the study, both working in silence until Daniel's voice broke through. You remind me of myself at your age, he said quietly. Trying to seem braver than you feel. Eli looked up, startled by the gentleness in his tone. You don't seem afraid of much. Daniel smiled faintly. That's because I've learned how to hide it. They spoke for hours after that, about fear, family, the strange loneliness that came from not fitting into the shapes others expected. Eli found himself drawn to Daniel's stillness, the way his voice could turn warmth into safety. There was nothing romantic in their words, but the air between them carried an undercurrent neither of them acknowledged. By the end of the week, Aaron's patience had thinned. He came home early one evening to find Daniel and Eli laughing over old records. The sound froze him in the doorway. So this is what you do when I'm gone, he said sharply. Daniel rose, calm but weary. Don't start. I'm not starting, Aaron shot back. I'm asking why there's a teenager living in our guest room and sharing dinner with you every night. I'm 18, Eli said softly, though his voice trembled. Aaron turned his glare on him. I wasn't asking you. Daniel's jaw tightened. Enough. Eli stays until he finds his footing. That's all. Aaron laughed, bitterly. You're playing savior again, Daniel. You always need someone to fix, because fixing people keeps you from fixing yourself. The words landed hard. Eli wanted to disappear. Instead, Daniel said quietly, You're tired, Aaron. Maybe we both are. Aaron didn't reply. He left the room, the slam of the door echoing through the apartment. Eli sat frozen. I should go, he whispered. I didn't mean to cause trouble. Daniel's expression softened. You didn't. Aaron and I have been unraveling for a long time. You just happened to arrive at the end of it. He looked away then, staring at the city lights beyond the window. When two people stop hearing each other, he said, silence becomes the only language left. Eli didn't know what to say. He wanted to comfort him, to thank him, to stay silent all at once. But words felt too fragile for the space between them. The night wore on. Daniel retreated to his room. Eli returned to the guest bed that no longer felt quite safe. Through the wall, he could hear faint voices, an argument breaking into quiet sobs, then nothing. Sometime after midnight, footsteps approached his door. Daniel's voice came softly through the wood. Eli. Are you awake? Yes. I just wanted you to know, I meant what I said. You have nothing to feel guilty for. Some things were ending long before you arrived. Eli hesitated, then replied, Thank you. For everything. He heard Daniel exhale, a sound halfway between relief and exhaustion. Then footsteps receded, and the apartment returned to silence. Eli lay staring into the darkness, his chest tight with emotions he couldn't name. Gratitude, confusion, maybe something more dangerous. He knew he should leave soon, that staying would tangle him in someone else's heartbreak, but the thought of walking away felt unbearable. He turned toward the window, watching the reflection of city lights shimmer across the glass. Somewhere down the hall, a door closed softly. The sound was small but final, like the end of something just beginning. Sleep eluded him. The warmth of Daniel's kindness lingered, tangled with guilt and longing. In the stillness, Eli realized that kindness could be as intoxicating as love, and just as dangerous. Sunday arrived muted and gray, the kind of morning that made even the air feel hesitant. Liam awoke earlier than he meant to, a thin stripe of pale light slipping through the curtains. The guest room was quiet, stripped of warmth now that he knew it was his last day there. He lay still for a moment, listening to the faint creaks of the house, half expecting to hear Noah's voice or Ethan's laughter from downstairs. But the silence held that he showered, packed his things, and took one last look around. The room looked exactly as it had when he arrived, impersonal, temporary. He hadn't left a mark, and somehow, that felt right. When he went down to the kitchen, Ethan was there making coffee, his hair still tousled with sleep. "You're up early," Ethan said, surprised. "I thought you'd sleep in." "Couldn't," Liam said with a small smile. "Heading back soon." Ethan nodded, leaning against the counter. "Shame. It was good having you here. You've been too quiet lately." "Work, mostly," Liam replied automatically, though both knew it wasn't true. Before Ethan could ask more, Noah entered, holding his sketchbook under one arm. His expression was calm, unreadable. "You're leaving already?" he asked. "Yeah," Liam said. "It's time." Noah gave a small nod. "The road's clear this morning. You'll have good weather." It was such a simple thing to say, yet it carried the weight of everything they weren't saying. Liam met his gaze briefly, long enough to acknowledge the unspoken, and then looked away. Caleb appeared next, yawning loudly, breaking the quiet tension that had settled over the room. By mid-morning, the car was packed. Ethan hugged him tightly. "Don't wait another year to visit, man," he said. "I won't," Liam replied, though he knew he might. Noah stood beside the porch railing, hands in his pockets. When Ethan and Caleb went inside to grab something, Liam turned to him. "Thanks," Liam said quietly. "For everything." Noah smiled faintly. "You don't have to thank me." "I think I do." A pause. Then Noah said, "Take care of yourself, Liam. And take care of him, too." Liam exhaled. "I'm not sure I know how." "You'll learn," Noah said. "Sometimes the hardest part is realizing it's not too late." Their eyes met for a moment longer, steady and fragile, then Liam climbed into his car. Noah raised a hand in farewell, not dramatic, just a quiet gesture of grace. Liam started the engine and drove away, the farmhouse shrinking in his rearview mirror until it was nothing but a pale outline against the sky. The drive home was long. The world passed by in muted tones, empty roads, fading fields, a sky unsure if it wanted to rain. He thought of the weekend in fragments, Ethan's laughter, Caleb's easy warmth, Noah's voice saying absence. The moments replayed not as memories but as something still unfolding inside him. By the time he reached the city, the sun had broken through. His apartment felt colder than he remembered. Daniel's shoes were by the door, his coat hanging neatly on the rack. From the kitchen came the faint sound of music, a habit Daniel used when he cooked. Liam hesitated before stepping inside. Daniel turned when he entered. "Hey," he said, smiling faintly. "You're back early." "Traffic was light," Liam replied. He set his bag down, suddenly unsure what to do with his hands. "How was Ethan?" "Good. He's doing well," Liam said. He wanted to mention Noah, to say his name aloud, to acknowledge what the weekend had stirred, but he didn't. Instead, he sat at the table while Daniel finished chopping vegetables. They spoke about small things, work deadlines, the car's oil light, a neighbor moving out. But beneath the words, there was something else, an unease, quiet but growing. Finally, Daniel turned off the stove and faced him fully. "Are we okay?" Daniel asked softly. The question hit harder than Liam expected. "Why do you ask?" Daniel's eyes searched his. "Because lately it feels like we're pretending not to notice something breaking." "You've been distant, Liam." "I don't know if it's me or you or both of us." Liam looked down, tracing the edge of his sleeve. "I don't know either," he said. "I just know that I feel like I'm watching us from somewhere else." Daniel moved closer. I don't want that. I just want to understand what you need. The honesty in his voice cracked something open in Liam. He wanted to confess everything, the quiet connection, the spark he hadn't sought but couldn't forget. But the truth wasn't about Noah. It was about the absence that had existed long before him. I don't think I know what I need, Liam said finally. But I know I don't want us to keep pretending. Daniel nodded slowly, his expression unreadable. Then maybe we start by not pretending tonight. He reached out and took Liam's hand. It wasn't passionate or desperate, just steady, a gesture of someone still trying. Liam let him. The touch felt unfamiliar, yet comforting in its sincerity. They ate dinner together in near silence. There was no grand reconciliation, no sudden clarity. Only two people quietly acknowledging the distance between them and, for once, not running from it. Later, after Daniel had gone to bed, Liam sat by the window, the city lights flickering faintly below. He took out his phone, scrolled to Noah's number, the one Ethan had texted him earlier, casually, without realizing its weight, and stared at the screen that he typed a message, "Made it home safe. Thanks for the weekend." His thumb hovered over "send" before he deleted the words one by one. Some things, he realized, were meant to stay unspoken, not because they lacked meaning, but because their meaning was too fragile to survive beyond the moment they belonged to. He set the phone down and looked outside. The night sky was clouded but calm, the faint glow of streetlights catching on the wet pavement. For the first time in a long while, the quiet didn't feel like punishment. It felt like possibility. In the next room, Daniel stirred, mumbling his name softly in his sleep. Liam closed his eyes and listened, letting the sound settle inside him. There was still something left, not perfect, not certain, but real enough to try for. He thought of Noah's last words, "You'll learn." Maybe he would. Maybe learning didn't mean choosing one person over another, but choosing to face what had gone unseen. When dawn came, the apartment was filled with soft light. Liam stood by the window again, watching it spill across the floor, warming the spaces that had been cold for too long. He didn't know what the next day would bring, but for once, that uncertainty didn't scare him. He turned toward the closed bedroom door, toward the life still waiting to be rebuilt, and took a slow breath. The past 2 days had changed him quietly, without force, a reminder that even brief connections can open locked rooms inside a person. And as he walked away from the window, a faint calm followed him, not resolution, but readiness.